Sometimes you have to say things that people don't like.
Power and money is not everything in terms of like finding who you want to connect with, because I had someone supporting me as I was trying to network who was corrupt as fuck. She stole from me.
People try to please everybody and they don't stand out enough. Like, if you really want people to know you, you kind of need people to like you and hate you at the same time.
Business is such a massive game. I would think, like, how do you know which business to get into if you're just starting?
You don't really need to be good at math or strategy to be good at business. You just need to really know what you're good at.
If you were to start all over, would you still do poker?
Wow, that's kind of a tough one.
This is Winning the Game of Life, presented to you by Dan Jungleman Cates.
What's up, guys? Today I'm with the former #1 Singapore's best, Wayne Yap, and he's transitioned successfully from poker to business and made a lot of money doing various other things on the side, as well as sought transcendental meditation and other high meditative states. Has gone quite a bit down the spiritual rabbit hole. Wayne, would you say that's an accurate way to describe yourself?
Yeah, I guess so. Maybe not the transcendental meditation part, because like I don't do TM. I just do a lot of meditation and had transcendental experiences.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Well, meditation where you transcend typical states of reality, more like enter altered states of consciousness and things of that nature. It sounded like you entered Samadhi. You described it as Ananda, but the state that, at least when I was in certain yoga groups, they called it Samadhi, where you experience something temporarily and it's as if you like transcend time somehow. I don't know if it's even real. I never experienced it. Would that be accurate, or was it, or something else?
there's just so many different Sanskrit words that describe so many different states, and it's kind of hard to like really precisely know which one you experience. So like, to be honest, I think Samadhi, if I'm not wrong, is like a bit of more catch-all kind of phrase. But yeah, like you definitely transcend the body and you feel like it's almost like you take psychedelics, but like without actually taking anything.
Yeah, let's get to that in a second. The idea behind psychedelics is you reach these states without doing meditation or anything along those lines, from my knowledge anyway. But let's talk about your success, because you played 5K, 10K, HKD, and you made quite a bit of money from private games, as well as having some tournament success. I looked up your Henan mob. They're missing this $5.6 million win that you've got from a Poker Stars tournament. I believe it's ACOP, and you also won one for 2.2 million Hong Kong dollars that was on there. So you've got quite a bit of success. I don't know of any other player from Singapore that has had that kind of success from tournaments. Maybe there's somebody, I don't know. Give us like a very brief synopsis of what made you decide to switch from that to business, even if you're like crushing it.
I mean, there was a phase where I started reading a lot of books and started like really questioning, like, is this what I wanted to do with my life? Felt like there was so much more outside of poker. So I always give the analogy that like it really felt like I was on top of one mountain, realizing that there's another mountain that is higher that I can explore. But if I wanted to go up the mountain, I have to climb down this mountain. So, and as you're climbing down this mountain, there's always a lot of temptations, like people asking you to play games, and you're like, oh, should I go back? But every time I went to play, I felt like I'm just walking up the wrong mountain. So in the end, I decided, okay, if I really wanted to do business, I just have to say no to poker for a while and climb down this mountain to climb up the other mountain.
Makes lots of sense to me. Actually, by the way, a sort of spiritual teacher, a bit of a, what are they called? Like, somebody who talks to spirits told me something along those lines a long time ago, when I was like at the top of a mountain and they're saying like, oh, you're looking out and looking for other mountains. Something along those lines. I wonder if that's, there's a coincidence there or not. I'm always like, take those things with a grain of salt, but that makes lots of sense, especially considering your life. You, in addition to being so successful at poker, you had a lot of success at other things and got bored, even if they weren't quite as large, and were at, other points in your life. When you started out, you were super interested in bowling, and then at some point, World of Warcraft, if that's right, had some funny stories along those lines. Why don't you tell those stories for us about showing how interested you were in bowling and your level of success, and also World of Warcraft?
Yeah, I mean, I was just kind of the kind of person that when I did one thing, I wanted to do it well. But then when I feel like I'm sort of near the peak of what I can achieve, Like when I start to like kind of plateau a little bit, I get bored. So I mean, I wrote the story on my ex, like I pinned it to my profile. Yeah, I guess I can tell the brief preview of it. Basically, I was so obsessed with bowling that when my mom wanted me to quit bowling one time, I was like, this is my life. You can't make me quit what I would love. If you want me to quit, I might as well jump out of the building. And I looked at her like, and I was serious. Like I knew that if you want me to do this, I'm gonna jump. Like I care about this so much. And then when I played World of Warcraft, I mean the funny story, and it's kind of embarrassing that I don't know if I kind of regret putting it in my thread because it went so viral, and then like everybody's asking me about it, and I just have to. Yeah, basically I wrote about being so obsessed with playing World of Warcraft, and my girlfriend was giving me a blowjob when I was playing, and I was like, I still want to play.
That's loyalty. There wouldn't be too many girls supportive of that, I don't think. In the US, I don't know, or I don't know. I don't think there are many, but what do I know?
I mean, it didn't happen all the time. It's just like, when you are writing a story, you bring out the big experiences or like the highlights.
World of Warcraft is addicting. I almost got sucked into that. Would you say that you learned lessons from these games in order to eventually get into business and do other things?
Yeah. I mean, I think the main thing I learned from bowling is that there are things like you're against yourself, right? Even though there's your opponents and stuff, you just make the best decisions, almost like in a vacuum. You're bowling against the lanes and the pins. A lot of times in business, I mean, even though it's interactive and there's multiplayer involved, you're just by yourself in your room. You just have to do the work. You have to do it to the best of your abilities. And poker, I mean, I'm sure you know, there's so many things you learn from poker. I think the biggest one is like EV, and you can bring that into business. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. So many people don't know EV and they run a business. They just don't know how it works.
That's very strange. I would have thought you can't be a successful business if you know, like, at least the concept of EV. Like, not the literal concept, but the idea that you don't care so much about the outcome rather than how well you do things. You know what I mean? And whether the outcome's actually positive. Or excuse me, whether the expectation is actually going to be positive.
I guess they kind of understand that they have to make the best decisions, but they are not very precise with a lot of things. Like for example, if you buy ads on Google, like for us, we would be thinking about, okay, what's the lifetime expected value or the lifetime profits that would come from spending this. Like a lot of people, even though it might be plus EV, but if it loses money upfront, they just don't understand that, you really have to factor in like a lot of variables.
I'm a bit curious what other sorts of weaknesses there are from people in businesses that they just like don't get over. Yes, aversion to loss seems like something that poker would help you with. Yeah, it's not such a big deal to lose stuff when you're playing poker. And I guess this a shitload of people have a massive aversion to loss. Anything else? Any other bigger examples, perhaps, in business? Like, that actually seems like a massive barrier. If you can't even invest in Google ads, if you're running a business, like, how the fuck can you invest in other things that will lose money up front?
Yeah, I mean, they expect an immediate ROI. Like, I just saw a tweet that somebody just quoted Jeff Bezos and it went viral. It's like, for us, it just seems so simple. It just says, if you have a 10% chance to go 100x, you should always take it. And it's like, for us, it's like, oh, the EV is so high. But other people are like, wow, this is true. It's so genius.
Yeah, that seems not, like, spectacular at all. It seems like a basic thought. I really know why. It seems pure status motivated virality.
Yeah, I mean, I put in quite a lot of thought into the other lessons I learned from poker that applies to business, because like the story thread that I wrote, I actually have like maybe 50 parts of stories I have had in poker or in life through like learning poker and stuff, and the lessons I learned in business. So another one that comes to mind is like polarizing. So when you play poker, I think most poker players know that in a toy game, polarization helps you to generate EV versus the person that plays the bluff catching range. Like in business, I feel like people try to please everybody and they don't stand out enough, and they don't like if you really want people to know you, you kind of need people to like you and hate you at the same time. You can't have like people that love you without having some people that hate you as well. Like for example, my beauty clinics, a lot of brands are just like, they just have nothing unique. They don't say anything different from the competitors, and it's very hard. They just like completely commoditized. So I don't think people really understand that sometimes you have to say things that people don't like for you to build a brand. that calls out, especially in a competitive market.
That makes loads of sense, because if you think about it, like, how can someone know to pick one thing over many other things? It's a filtering problem from the buyer's perspective, or the whatever the consumer is. In this case, the consumer is always like a literal buyer. And I mean, a very relevant example to a lot of poker players is you look at them. A very relevant example to a lot of poker players is you look at them and they're playing poker tournaments or whatever it is. They all basically seem the same from afar, and they have no ability to market themselves or differentiate themselves between anybody else. No one really thinks about it like that. Actually, it's when we talk about it reminds me more of the issue of the sexual economy. Actually, it looks like a non sequitur, but basically a lot of guys have no idea how to polarize or stand out from the crowd. Got no like skew in some kind of way. But yeah, in general with poker players, it's really just no one does anything unique. It's all like sort of a bunch of robots. Can you give more examples of business that allow you to make money? Any other businesses that everyone basically says the same thing or does the same thing, and if you do something different, you'll make money? I can give an example of how it shows up in poker. If you have to find the value somewhere, and almost everyone's like trying to get better at a certain point, and none of those people are very exceptional, don't have very exceptional results, and what they need to do is find value in pockets where most people won't go. That would be one example that I would give.
To rephrase your question, you're asking specifically for a situation in business that I apply this, or that I see that there's a chance to polarize and have a different point of view, and so you can stand out and succeed in business.
Yeah, or do
Is that
something
roughly?
different to make money, because there has to be some kind of difference in order to get money. This is just how the world has to work, right? Because one can't expect reliably to make more money by doing the same fucking thing. That doesn't make any sense logically. So it has to be something different in order to make money in some kind of way in business. So other examples, by polarizing or doing something unique, which is also a form of polarizing, it's just at a different dimension.
Yeah, I guess I will talk about my own business. The first business that I bought, it's called Costume Aesthetics. It's a beauty salon chain at one location. We grew to 3. Everybody was selling packages and a lot of the business model that people ran was kind of the same. They ran like cheap trials, and then somebody comes in, they try to upsell a huge package. And I realized that that's something that people really hate. Nobody wants to go in and get sold and sold and sold to all the time. Stand up against it completely and just like go for a model that is no packages, no hard selling. I realized that everybody was saying no hard selling, but nobody really dared not to sell package because it's so standard. And if you're like a old school person like that has been running the business for a while, you have a lot of package debt. And once you have accumulated that, it's really hard to stop selling that, and then you have to fulfill on the existing packages plus new people that come. So I think about it like in like copywriting, you have like these levels of awareness thing where you're kind of like, or rather you have a level of market sophistication thing. It depends on how sophisticated the market, and you kind of like need to one up the person or the competitors in the industry. It's a bit like poker where you're like leveling in some ways, where it's like I think you're doing this, you think I'm doing that, and it's like if you're 2 levels ahead, sometimes you're the wrong level. Yeah, so in business, when you think about your competitors and what they're doing, right, it's kind of the same as well. You want to just be like 1 step ahead. If they're saying that you can lose weight if you drink this special drink, then you need to take it 1 step ahead, say something that nobody else is saying. Like, I don't know, maybe this special drink has like GLP-1s or something inside, like some scientific way. And then if people are all saying that already, then you take it 1 more level and like, oh, why does this specifically explain the mechanism? And everybody's saying the same thing already. You're like, oh, everybody's saying the same thing, and then you kind of throw and go against the whole grain of it. Which is like, maybe you would say something that is, are you sick and tired of everybody over promising this? What's more important is the business model, that you get it at a good price. Go away the mechanism completely.
Okay, that makes some sense. I'm wondering if there's like a GTO of these drinks where there's just a strategy that's going to succeed on average more than like trying to level your opponents, because that's what happens in poker, right? If you're both trying to have this leveling war of like, okay, I think this guy is going to call because I think that he thinks that I'm bluffing too much, and then he starts calling you a lot. You're like, okay, now I gotta bluff less. Like, there's a GTO in the middle. So is there a GTO in the situation of business between like trying to make a good product that's worth the price versus saying, oh, it's got this or that?
I feel like as the market develops, it kind of goes more like, instead of it being like a and B, like it would be in poker, it would be like A, B, C, D, and then you go back to A again. It kind of goes in a loop. in some ways. It doesn't really have an equilibrium point, because when it reaches the end of the cycle, you kind of start maybe science has developed or markets have developed and it's in need of something completely new. So it starts afresh again somewhere else.
Oh, okay. So I'm like struggling to find a GTO here of this, but maybe it like resides in some other kind of dimension where you apply a certain amount of energy towards product development, and like this is actually GTO rather than getting caught up in these cycles. Does it make any kind of sense?
I guess product development is important, but also like picking the right product that is lacking in the marketplace. I don't know, it's kind of hard to just like pick one thing when it comes to business and mainly focus on that thing.
What are some other poker stories that you have that taught you a lot about business or life, that helped you a lot? Any big losses? Any big investments or trips that you took that yielded big results? Any connections that you made? Any experiences trying to learn something new?
Okay, I think one thing that I take and I think about quite a lot when I was playing poker towards the end of my poker journey, is like a lot of times you spend exploring, networking, exploring private games and just like trying things out. You just like explore until you find a good game and then you try to exploit it to the max. Try to pay as much as you can in it. In business, generally, like for any new business that I go into, I'm exploring a lot of different things at once. Like instead of picking one, let's say marketing channel that I think is gonna work, I'm picking 5 of them that I think might work. You know, maybe I'm running Google ads, I'm running Meta ads, I'm posting organic on TikTok, I am doing email marketing, I'm just testing a whole bunch of different things. It's basically I'm exploring until I find something that is like pretty plus EV, and then I just step back. It's like I see it all as potential S curves, but at the start of the S curve, you can't tell the difference between which will have that spike. But when you find something that has the spike, then you just bet more. You know, when you have a winning hand, you just like go all in. And in business, it's kind of crazy because it's very scalable. When you find something that works, you can scale it for quite a while. Like if you find one channel that works, you can go take a business from maybe 100K per year to like 1 million or 2 million per year, just from like one channel.
So what are these channels?
Basically any advertising channel, or even like direct mail, or even word of mouth, or even physical trade shows. It can be any channel really, because I mean, of course it depends on the market size and depends on whether there's enough people in that channel for your particular market. It's because of like a little bit of a flywheel effect, where especially when you're monetizing that channel, because you can get into a spot where, let's say you put $1,000 into Meta ads and you get back $2,000 within 60 days. Now you can put $2,000 the next cycle, and then you can put 4,000 the next cycle, as long as you have enough capacity to fulfill.
Sure.
So it kind of like the flywheel spins and it goes bigger and bigger until the channel is exploited fully.
Is there not like crossover between the various channels? Do you know what I mean? Like if you exploit
There
one,
will be.
okay, yeah, I would think so. So you exploit one channel a lot eventually, I would imagine, especially with the internet, it like hurts other channels. Leakage is the word, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on how you're doing it. It's like if you're adding value to the channel, and like I see it as like when you're selling a service or selling a product, you're trying to help people who need you find you, rather than you're trying to milk everybody from that pool of people. You're trying to find the people who can get benefit from your service. So
Sure.
if you're selling to them and you're selling to the correct people, you don't hurt, or you don't like kill. In fact, you get extra boosts on the other channels usually.
Oh, really? Oh, that makes sense. I mean, that's playing the greater than zero sum game versus the less than zero sum game. And in poker, we do have actually that issue of like people basically trying to milk the community for as much as possible, or playing a lot of like less than zero sum games, you can say, in their own kind of way, by not like adding social value to the whole experience, or adding some kind of value, I should say. It doesn't have to be social value, like give money away. Usually people are cool with that one, even if you're like not that much fun, or not adding social value of some sort.
I mean, business is the same. A lot of people just like, they just sell shit that don't work. And yeah, and they burn through a lot of channels, like where people just like, maybe certain, for example, internet marketing is like a lot of people just like overselling, like, hey, come here, make 10K a month. I'll promise you that you can do it. And you just like, and yeah, there's always like people playing less than zero sum games in channels or in industries.
When you were coming up in stakes, Did you have any major setbacks at all? Like, how did you, it sounded like you rose a bit exponentially, I would say.
Okay, by the time I graduated from university, I was playing part-time in uni. I made about 300k. So within my university days, I was like up and down quite a bit. You know, I went up to 100k, I went down to like 10k. I was like, went back up to 100k, and then like, I think my bet, cause like I was in school, and then when I get to fly to Macau, I would just fly to Macau, and I would just like play, and like, oh, there's a big game, and it looks like it's a juicy game. I would just fire lose like a third of my bankroll in one session, and a third again in the next session, and then go back to Singapore with like half my money left. And then,
Oh, you're nuts. And did you have the same approach in business? Because I don't know if this works in business, where you can just kind of gamble and you have like 10K left, you can run it up again. Did your approach change from business to starting up? I know that you experienced a point where you were having lots of trouble getting everything off the ground or marketing yourself. You interviewed Jay Abraham. I'm curious how you got out of that, because it seems like if you, like in poker, if in business you're out of action, it really seems like your options were limited.
okay, I started doing consulting work first, and then I was like I found it very difficult to find clients. I guess because maybe I didn't have much business success, and I didn't have conviction to push the strategies I believe would work across. And like, it was always like, okay, I had this strategy, we discuss it, and then they don't really want to execute on the strategy because maybe it seemed too risky, or I couldn't like limit the downside, or maybe I just didn't have enough industry experience. So I got tired of it, and I was like, I'm gonna buy some businesses instead. I guess when I buy the businesses, and then I bought another one, and then I bought another one, so I kind of had a few. So like, if one didn't work so well, I had others that was doing well at that time. In the end, I like had 2 failed businesses from acquisitions that I did. So it's kind of like I'm kind of like spreading my eggs into multiple baskets.
This makes sense. So what you're doing, to my understanding, is private equity, right? So you bought this sounds like not that easy either, to be honest. You just kind of hopped into buying businesses, negotiated a reasonable deal, and then, I mean, were you advising the CEO, or were you acting as the person on the board? What was your role within those businesses?
To be honest, before I bought the businesses, I thought that I could be like an advisor or somebody on the board, just like advising. But in reality, once you buy it, you're the main person with all of the incentive to do it well. And
Really?
it's very hard to really drive other people to do it super well. I mean, the deals I did are like quite small. They're all like sub 1 million.
Okay, so we're talking about how you bought a bunch of businesses. You bought 5 businesses. You couldn't be just on the board and like running you couldn't just be on the board and helping making some decisions on the side, or advisor. You had to be kind of CEO, it sounds like. You had to run them. Is that right?
Yeah, you have to jump in and step in sometimes. Okay, for the businesses that I ran, they're small. So there's kind of a cap, like in terms of the quality of people you can get. Yes, you can find people that are kind of smart, but not like the super smart ones. And yeah, sometimes they just like don't know how to fix actual business problems because they're employed because they're not business people in the first place. So they can't like think of innovative solutions. If it's kind of stuck and the business is not going well, to be honest, their best play is just to leave and go somewhere else. So if the business fails, it's like their downside is like capped. When like lockdowns came, we have to close the locations because of the lockdowns, because government regulations. Then you have to go in and make the hard decisions. You have to go in and motivate the people in the team.
Actually, I have 3 questions for you. 1, how did you know how to solve these problems having little experience in business? 2, how did you motivate them? That's also not an easy thing to do. And 3, did you not fire anybody or hire anybody? That's also not an easy thing to do. You have like a really hard problem, it looks like, to solve, and a bunch of businesses. How did you get out of this?
I read a lot and I go for a lot of courses and learn a lot from coaches and stuff. So I have accumulated a lot of tools in my toolbox. Of course, like knowing which one to apply when is not the easiest. And so it's not like, I straight away figure everything out. I had to try, fail, try again. At the end of the day, it's like you just have to back yourself that you can figure it out. And you just try and try. Like, you kind of take the approach like, if somebody else can figure it out, like I'm smarter than them, I can figure it out too. Maybe I just need a bit of time. And then in terms of motivating people,
how do you motivate people that are unmotivated in business and you don't have a whole lot of experience behind motivating people as well, presumably?
Well, I think it's like there's multiple parts to it, and you sort of like need to get a lot right in terms of like really motivating people. I think the first is like just like really talking to them and knowing what drives them and figuring out like how you can give them something they cannot get anywhere else. Maybe this is like in terms of having autonomy in the work, in terms of the culture and the environment. I mean, this is what I know now, like after reading so many books and trying so many things. I think a lot about like what's their natural self, and how can I fit them into a role and create a special role for them that suits their natural selves. Because if I kind of do it like that, then they would find it very hard to leave, and they would be more motivated to do work, because it's just like just more suited for their natural self. And then I think maybe for poker players, like we think a lot in terms of incentives. Like how do we align the incentives? I always go into any business that I take over thinking about how can I align incentives at all levels of the chain, from the clients to the people on the ground, to the client support people, to the marketing team, to the managers, to the business owners. And I try to like layer in little incentive mechanisms that I believe works well for everyone. Of course, it's not perfect, but like the more you can do it, the closer to optimal, the more you can motivate people to do the work.
That makes quite a bit of sense. There's some caveats to that, such as money can only go so far. I think you know that. Apparently the optimal amount of money to give like a CEO, for example, is about $150K a year, or like the most that makes any kind of sense. And I mean, like, I don't know if you're paying 5 different companies rates like that, you might have a problem with funds, is what I would think. This sounds like a bit of a problem, especially if you have multiple different problems between companies. I guess, though, you can let a couple of them fail. Did you do that?
I sold 2 at a loss. Like, I kind of like gave up on it. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, it makes sense. How can you run fucking 5 companies when you don't have any experience? And you gotta like take reins somehow, and like just not all are gonna succeed. Sure, especially if you're not putting loads of energy into them. I'm a bit curious what these other mechanisms look like. I personally read some books about this too. It seemed that even motivation can be changed if someone doesn't have all that much. It makes a sense what you're saying about incentives. I read a book called Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lencioni that helped answer this. Bit curious how you managed to change this. And I'm also, as a follow-up question, do you think it's changeable for poker players? Because a lot of poker players lack motivation, probably don't know how to get it. So, if you could change the motivation in yourself, how do you change it for other people?
Okay, you mentioned Patrick Lencioni. I really like his other book, The 6 Types of Working Genius. And I actually think about that book and how people have a top 2 kinds of genius that they're just like naturally predisposed to act, and that gives them energy. So in business, I find what works quite well is to really figure out if you can put people that need each other's genius to work with each other. And then their geniuses kind of end up motivating each other. So like I don't have to step into, because they just function really well as a team, just because there's some flow to like the chain of geniuses.
That makes lots of sense. Okay, is there any equivalent for poker players? Because, if you can't guide yourself towards success, how the hell can you guide a team towards success, right? And not to mention, like, are there also different forms of genius for poker players to become successful? Or you just have to be analytical, understand EV, be good at math, like you were good at computer science? What do you think?
I think that there's a base level of math and stuff that you need. Like, you don't have to be a super genius in math. You can like figure other ways out of making money, like getting into the best games, or just like I actually believe that you can be like, some people are just like really intuitive, and they just like, I don't know, they just have a special sixth sense in certain spots in poker. I've seen some people like that. They're like not really math based, just crush the highest games. Like, I have a very close Swedish friend that beat the biggest Macau games. Like, I mean, he's not bad at math, but he just like somehow like knew what's up more often than not. I don't even know like what's the right way to say it. But in terms of like people who are not motivated, then it's like not like there's something I can state ahead that would just like suddenly motivate them. It's probably they just have to go and figure out what's important to them and what kind of maybe stories they have in their head that's repeated in their head all the time. Like, I like this Dr. Joe Dispenza thing where he says like humans have 70 to 80,000 thoughts in their head daily, and 90% of them are the same as yesterday. So there's this like dialogue that's always going on in our head. If you're unmotivated, it's probably because you have some negative dialogue in your head. And when you think that thought enough, it becomes your actions. If you do the actions long enough, it becomes your like what you do every day. And if it's what you do every day, then you're just like stuck in a vicious loop.
Can you tell one strategy that led to one of your businesses succeeding in these situations where there weren't? Like, what would be like the strategy for one of them that fixed things? Because I don't think that's easy. I think that's really that's like the difference between not being successful and successful is whatever the fuck that, all this X factor is between making a business like struggling to actually being successful. And it's actually what you did sounds pretty impressive, if I'm honest. It sounds like you just kind of jumped in there and figured things out.
I would say like when it comes to small businesses, like your competition, like if you're a successful poker player who has made quite a bit of money in poker, your IQ level is like way higher than your competitors. So you go in, like there's a lot of people who are not very smart when it's like in business, just that they have a lot of experience. So I mean, I think you can kind of like, if you back yourself and you go in and learn and ask people questions and figure out, you will be able to figure it out. And I mean, there's like frameworks that I use to think about things, like mental models or like business models that help me. One example I can give is the BCG box. It's called the STAR principle that I think about quite a bit. It basically just has like 4 quadrants. You want to be in the quadrant that's the star, which is when you're the market leader in a growing market. And a growing market is defined as a market growing 10% or more per year. So I use this when I think about a business that I go into. If I go into the business and I'm not the market leader and it's not a growing market, first off, I probably wouldn't even want to go into this business. But if I really am in that spot, then I have to figure out, like, can I carve out a sub-segment of the market that I can be the market leader and that is growing? So for example, in the beauty business, I realized that people were hitting this like package model that was prevalent in Singapore a lot, and the non-package model is a growing market. It's like, even though it's just a niche and a sub corner of the market, if I could capture this and be the market leader in that particular portion, I would have a star. And stars is just much easier to grow a star. Like, in fact, I think it's like number one objective when you go into the business. Like, can you figure out how you can be the market leader in a sub niche or in a sub market?
That makes a lot of sense. You want to go into growing businesses. I think poker's growing. It seems to be growing worldwide, actually. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I consider myself more successful in business than poker, but it's like, compared to other people, like nobody cares about like the size of my businesses. Because like obviously people are running like billion-dollar companies. But like people hear that I play poker and that I won 3 million, they're like, wow, you must be so smart. There's so many business people that are just like interested in poker. Maybe it's so the All-In podcast guys are like really helping.
That's funny. It makes some kind of sense. It's kind of like a professional mind sport of sorts. It's like the Wild West a little bit for them. I'm personally interested the other way. There's possibilities to scale far beyond it in business. But there's business in poker too, which people don't really pay so much attention to. It's a little bit I think it's growing, but not so rapidly, partly because of a lot of legislative issues in various different countries. So it's growing a little unpredictably too. This is a bit on my end to research. What was the book, by the way, that you read about the star quadrant?
I guess the book that I would recommend on this topic is called The Star Principle. It's by this guy, Richard Koch. He wrote the 80-20 principle as well, the main 80-20 book. I mean, the concept was from BCG, or the founder, Bruce Henderson. And then like Bill Wayne took the concept and used it a lot in Bain & Co. And that's kind of one of the big factors for how Bain grew their consulting division so much.
Let me ask you this. If you were to start all over, would you still do poker, and would you recommend it?
Wow, that's kind of a tough one, because like I gambled for the first time when I was 6. Like, I played my first hand of poker when I was 13. It kind of found me. I was like naturally good at games, math, numbers. My family were pretty open to it because my mom played like mahjong, so like they're open to gambling. So I feel like I didn't have a choice. But if you ask me and I could go back in time, I would probably play poker as a hobby and just do business, because you just accumulate so much more. I think I would be much further along my life if I just like put that many more years into business.
So how would you do things if you were to do them all over? I want to challenge this just because it just looks like you kind of started from the top up and kind of figure out how to get things from there. But if if you didn't like have all that money in the first place, how the fuck would you have started your own companies, hired everybody? It would have been a very different experience, I would have thought. But what do I know? Maybe you know something I don't. Maybe I could just be wrong.
I mean, it's definitely easier to start with having money from poker and like, knowing some other smart people, like, because when I quit poker, then a few of my friends also quit poker and went to business. So it's like, you had other successful friends already doing business that you can kind of figure it out with. I had a lot of money to join courses and meet other smart people. So I definitely accelerated my journey because I started after making money. But at the same time, there's like many other business like I meet so many 21-year-olds these days that like on Twitter or something, and maybe they're like running a marketing agency or something, or e-commerce store. Yeah, I mean they figured it out and they're like 21 and they have money already. Like they kind of went through the same path, like kind of pace that I did in poker, as like, but they're running a parallel path in business. But they continue compounding because they went up the right mountain. I went up the wrong mountain, so I kind of have to climb down for a little while and then go up.
Yes, I guess if you're going to increase the likelihood of extreme success at a younger age, then for sure business, right? But I would argue that poker's distribution of success this is one of the attractive things of poker. The distribution of success is a little bit more predictable because business is such a massive game. I would think, like, how do you know which business to get into if you're just starting? You don't know it. Like, someone would not know anything. I don't know about you. Maybe you would do something right, like research the right markets and stuff like that. That's quite a hard thing for people to do when they get into business. In poker, you just get into poker, and if you're pretty good or pretty smart or pretty hardworking or whatever it is, pretty rational. Rational is probably more important than those other things, but correlates with intelligence. You can have like modest success pretty reliably a high percentage of the time, whereas like it's a huge chance you get into business, someone tells you to go to business school and you have a shitload of debt. Like no one ever talks about all those people. It'd be really nice to get some data behind that. I was reading this book, Personal MBA, and the guy was telling me what a waste of time it is to go to business school. Maybe you didn't go to business school, so maybe you would agree with that. I would just think there's a really high chance people go broke. And then, yeah, of course, there's people that have like shitloads of money when they're really young in business, but those people are massive outliers, probably. There's a higher amount of them. I would just think, there's plenty of poker people that can make 100K plus a year, certainly in Asia, where the market's not that efficient for sure from what I've seen. Now, like, it's kind of opening up in Japan. Like, I've heard there's some series in Japan. It's kind of a nice life. You get to be free. That's my personal take on it. Maybe like a huge percentage of people that like got stuck with crypto or marketing or whatever it is, and they're making loads of money. So I can't really speak too much about that.
The top 5% in business make some serious money. Whereas in poker, I guess top 5% of pros make some serious money. But like both sides are the distribution is like not too different. Maybe like 1% of people who try it actually make some money in it. So I'm really like indifferent between like whichever field you go, as long as you are smart and you put in the effort and you are logical and you make good decisions, you're probably gonna succeed anywhere you go.
I'm saying for sure the top 5% of business people make serious money. I don't know if it's really the top 5% that make really serious money. It might be like a massive skew, like the skew between, like, for example, tennis. In tennis, you need to be top 100 to make any kind of money. Like, if you're not top 100 in the fucking world, you're fucked in tennis, right? So the skew, and it would be nice to have some graphs alongside this, the skew of success of tennis is very extreme, like far more extreme in business. And what I'm saying is that probably the skew in business looks something like that too. I don't know if it's that extreme. I think it's not that extreme, but you can make like really, really crazy money if you're like successful. I'm saying the skew for poker is not as extreme as either, and is like a lot more gradual, which is important than those other two versions. But yeah, as you said, there's no way that you'll make nearly as serious money from poker as a business. Business is got to be quite a bit harder if we factor everything in. There's much more variance in the short term, but in terms of like the distribution of outcomes. But if you apply yourself, I'm sure if you're quite smart, you can figure things out and make loads of money. Like, I definitely agree with that. I just don't know if it makes sense to if it's a good idea to start with poker in the beginning or not. Or if it is a good idea to just jump into business. Like, what does that even mean, by the way? Because you can't just like acquire a business starting out. You can't just like buy a business if you already have money. So there's that. You'd have to be an entrepreneur as one possibility. You couldn't be an angel investor straight away, for example. You couldn't invest like 100,000 in courses really without taking out loans and going to business school. So then which business would you get into? You can't get into every business without capital. There's a gateway to a lot of them.
If you don't have money and you're young, I guess you can use a search fund, which is like you raise money first and then use that to acquire a business. I think though, if you're young, probably the best thing you can do if you wanted to get into business is like to be the right-hand man or an apprentice towards somebody who is already successful and join in to that. Like for example, if I go into the deal and there's a young, smart, hungry person that coming alongside me and like learning the entire process of buying a business and then growing it, it's like after you see the whole process once, your probability of doing it in the next one is like gonna be pretty high. And it doesn't have to be me, it can be like any other business person. That would probably be the path I think has the fastest rate of success. If you already have some money, I think buying a business is a great option because there's product market fit already. You can buy an already profitable business, so you don't actually have to figure out what you need to go into. You can kind of like, if you pick any profitable business, you can probably just make it slightly better and not ruin it, and it will be profitable. Yeah, you can often buy a profitable business for 2 times or 3 times of annual profits as well. Or on leverage, you can ask the seller to finance some of the deals. If you can take bank loans if you're brave enough for it. Yeah, because there's a whole bunch of business people that just want to retire and they're old, and what are you gonna do? There's like pretty interesting thing in my opinion about buying businesses is that there's a natural market gap because the people who do this and become good, they just play bigger and bigger very quickly. A lot of people wanting to sell small businesses, but there's not a lot of buyers because people don't think about buying businesses. So it's kind of like there's a lot of money trying to buy big businesses and a lot of people trying to sell small businesses and some people wanting to buy small businesses. But in the middle, like at the few hundred K to 1 million kind of or 2 million kind of mark, you can get pretty good deals because of this like supply demand mismatch. And you can buy profitable businesses for like 3 times annual profits. Yeah, so that's kind of like why I went into buying businesses. Yeah, I realized it's like a natural arbitrage opportunity that will always exist.
There's a few comments I've got. It sounds like you found a bit of a value, a situation of sorts to that where there is a bit of a, not a whole lot of efficiency that is in buying private equity that's already profitable. This sounds like something that a lot of people with money aren't really exploring. I mean, personally, I wouldn't, like, I haven't really looked into buying lots of profitable private equity. I get it's a lot of stuff for angel investing, and this is actually a bit of a trap. Like, there's lots of ways to fuck that up. That's a whole nother conversation. Buying profitable businesses makes probably a lot of sense earlier on because it's quite a soft transition if someone has money, and it's hard to fuck it up too much because you have to like fire someone important has to leave. Like I could see how that would really screw things up. I'm not like a business expert, but something major has to go wrong and then a lot of things are working in the first place. I get that. Like I think a lot of people wouldn't know to do that. That's important. I think with the idea to learn from somebody who has already started business, that would be a great idea, but you'd have to get it right. That's actually what Rob Young said he did. He learned from somebody who was really good straight away and he like kind of begged this person to do it. And he happened to learn from the right person, but not all people are good that do this. So you can get screwed by working with the wrong person and doing it. So there's a variance even in that. This is what I'm kind of getting at is there's like a really wide range of variation just starting out from the beginning, I would think, in business. But there are loads of value possibilities. I think even in the case of buying companies, as you kind of applied, you buy them at like 3 times what they earn. So if everything goes the same, you would make your money back in 3 years, correct? And then in order to earn more money, you have to find a way somehow to add more money without fucking it up in order to make money on top of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. With a few extra additions, which is like number one, you can actually, usually when you buy a business like that, you don't buy like 100% cash. So if you get somebody who is eager to sell, you can talk to them and be like, hey, can you finance half of this business? Since you say it's so profitable, I don't know if your numbers are real, you have so much more information than me. How about if you think it's so good, I'll pay you some percent of it over time. So let's say you can finance it at 50% or you give them an earnout or something like that. So you try not to put all cash because it's too risky, and like, why would you do that when you can not put all cash, especially when there's a supply demand mismatch? So let's say you go in with like 50% of cash. Now maybe you pay the rest over 3 years, but it ends up being the same where it takes 3 years for you to make your money back. But then it's kind of like at the end of 3 years, you only put in half the amount and you get like you get extra leverage for your money. Plus, you can often grow the business. Maybe you go in and you boost it by 50%. You can find businesses where you feel like you can bring something to the table. So personally, my strategy is like, I'm pretty good at Google Ads. I'll try to find something that I know, like I'll do my keyword research and be like, okay, I know that this one needs Google Ads and they're not doing it well. So immediately I go in, I know how I can go in and boost it. And the last thing as well that a lot of people do and it's like they buy and they consolidate a whole bunch of businesses because, and this is called roll up in private equity, because when your business is doing like, let's say less than 2 million a year of profits, it's worth between 3 to 7 times. But once it crosses like 2 million profits, 10 million revenue, suddenly the multiple shoots up to 10 plus times because private equity companies are not interested in buying this. So you kind of buy from the spot where nobody will, like the big players don't want it because they have too much capital to deploy. They try to like consolidate and sell. So this is how like a lot of people make a whole shit ton of money in this space.
Okay, these seem like decent ideas once you already have money and have like some perspective on things. I like these ideas for the people that are already rich. From the ground up, your advice to like find someone who's already successful to teach sounds like mostly a pretty good idea. It's just a little bit high variance. But to be fair, you gotta find some kind of way to leverage your like lack of time for something good. My personal guess is probably in a vacuum the poker out's a little bit better because you don't need that shit. And like you're kind of waiting your whole existence on like this one person, which is actually a really scary thing to do. Like you need to make sure this is a good person or they're gonna fuck you in some kind of way. That's the thing. I actually learned this lesson the hard way that power and money is not everything in terms of like finding who you want to connect with, because I had someone supporting me as I was trying to network who was corrupt as fuck. And then this lady, her name was Hafit Golan. I have no problem outing her. She stole from me and like leveraged her like network a lot. She did some good things, to be fair. She did her job a little bit, but then she like would try to pressure me a lot to give her more money and that sort of shit. And what a person who understands they have that kind of leverage can do if they're a bad person is they can like, instead of money, they can leverage something else, like leverage and make like, someone who has no leverage, like put in more and more time and put in more and more effort because they have no choice. So the situation is a little bit risky, but could be good if the person is a good person. Then it's like a fantastic spot. It's like, okay, the good person's supporting you and now you're like actually good at business and successful. That's what people forget. It makes sense to partner with good people that have leverage, not people, period, that have leverage. In my opinion, of finding this out.
Yeah, for sure. That's very true. Like, you need some discernment and judgment to choose like what spot to go into. Depends on the opportunities that exist in front of you. Even for poker, I would argue that it's not for everybody. Like, if like I would say like you need to be slightly better at math than average. You should be like good at strategy games. You're like winning in games in the first place. Okay, then maybe it's a decent thing to bet on.
Isn't business the same way? Like, let me ask you this. I want to go into your spiritual discussion in a second, but like, suppose you're not good at games and strategy. What should you do if you're thinking of going to business or poker, by the way?
Okay, let's talk about business because I guess I spend much more time thinking about that these days. I feel like there's many different hats that you can play in business. Like, there's many different roles. I even made a quiz, and if anybody's interested, they can go to like quiz.wayneyap.com. It's like a founder archetype quiz. Basically, there's like 4 main types of people in like business. The first is the visionary, the strategist, the people like us. So we think about like games and like EV and like how to do deals. Like, it comes to us naturally. And then there's like the icon that I call. It's like a promoter, visionary, market, like influencer type of person. You can be really successful in business just knowing how to build your own brand. You can build up your brand you can build up your Instagram to 100 million or something. You just have a business right away. You don't even have to be good at other things. And then there's the operator kind of person. This would be the person that is the COO. They're really good at systems. They can take they can make SOPs. They can make people follow the instructions. They can lead people. There's that kind of person as well. And then there's another which I call the maestro. This would be the person that is just excellent at that one tiny niche craft that you can be the best coffee maker, or you can be the best knives maker, or you can be the best advertising guy, or the best poker player, or whatever. Anything you're the best in the world, you can make quite decent money. So to me, it's kind of like knowing like which seat you can fit into. And there are 10. I made it into 10 types because you can kind of blend 2 different types, where you can be like a visionary and an icon at the same time. Somebody like Richard Branson would be that. He was my archetype. Like, I think my point was trying to say that you don't really need to be good at math or strategy to be good at business. You just need to really know what you're good at and where you have a high ceiling in, and then double down on that particular portion.
Is there some kind of role for someone who's very social in business but isn't a strategist or anything like that? I mean, there are different versions of being social, but someone who like, does it make any kind of sense for someone who likes to party and meet loads of people, that kind of thing, or no?
I think for that kind of person, there's multiple roles that you can play. I think like a business development kind of role where you bring people together to do deals, that role fits pretty well. another role if they're really good with people, but it's more on the leader side where they're good in people in terms of motivating people to do things. These people make like really good COOs and right-hand mans, or like chief of staff.
To be honest, I would think that the skill set of leading people to do something is quite different from the skill set of being the kind of guy who makes people feel good at a party, if you know what I mean. I'm not the second kind of guy at all. I'm more like the kind of guy who likes to get things done, and I don't like to party personally. I'm just wondering if there's a place for these people to prosper in business, because it seems as though that attracts and like that seems like it would be good for the culture of the business, because a lot of people are like that. A lot of people aren't like thinking in their head all the fucking time, hey, how do we make this happen? They're trying to feel good and they're not trying to rock the boat kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like that's the majority of the personality types. There's a book called Surrounded by Idiots. I don't know why he titled it that, but he describes most people as the green personality type, where they're not really leaders. The red personality type is the leader type that is like rocks boats and really breaks down walls and things like that. The blue is more the analytical, like CTO type. Yellow would be more like the type that is the life of the party. I would have thought that there'd be a role for the yellow type, especially, but what do I know? Or they're more like very charismatic and very center of attention-ish.
I think those people make like great promoters, whether they are like promoting their own brand or promoting somebody else's brand or promoting somebody or just like connecting people in general.
Let's move on to your spiritual journey. That was actually one of the spiciest things. I've gone into quite a few rabbit holes down this, but I haven't had this experience as you're talking about. It sounded like you're meditating for 20 minutes every day, and then at some point you read something by Naval, you started meditating for 60 minutes a day, and that's where you really started feeling things. Is that what happened? And then Joe Dispenza got in the picture?
I guess they all kind of like, I decided to do 60 minutes a day, and then I was like, okay, I found Dr. Joe Dispenza at the same time, and then I was like, oh, okay, his meditations are mostly 90 minutes. Maybe I'll just do more. And I was like, it was like I was doing quite a lot in January as an experiment. And then I was like, oh, maybe I'll just do 3 hours a day and see like what happens if I did 1,000 hours in 2019. So I was like, and some days I did more, some days I did less, because I went for a whole bunch of retreats as well. Or just like you spend the whole day meditating basically. So I was just like really curious. At that time I was also going down the Tony Robbins path of like learning from Tony Robbins, and I was like a bit like, my identity was a bit all over the place, because on one hand I'm like jumping up and down, like, oh yes, like the Tony Robbins stuff. And on the other hand I'm like, I kind of feel like I just want to meditate and like go inside and observe as well. So at some point after I clocked enough hours, this is probably like 300 or 500 hours in, I went for a Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat, and that's where I had my first like proper transcendental experience.
Really? So you approve of Joe Dispenza? You think his retreats are worth it?
I think there's a lot of useful techniques that you learn. I think there's a lot of crazy things that happen there that you see and that you feel and that you experience. Like personally, I've gained a lot of value from it. Like just for me, like I guess you can say I'm biased in many ways, because that was when I first had like a proper, like where I felt like my whole body exploded and I'm flying in the mountains for one, and another like when my body is like in the cosmic consciousness. I feel like I'm just everywhere. I'm the stars and the planets, and like it's a microcosm and macrocosm. It's just like in a different dimension, we're all one kind of experience. And it's like such a deep, profound experience. You know, you can believe it blindly, you can intellectualize about it, or you can like actually experience it. And once you experience it, it's kind of like hard to deny that there's more to life than we know. So he taught me the techniques that helped me to accelerate my path towards that. So yeah, so I think it's worth it.
Yeah, that's what a lot of them say, by the way. That's what all of the teachers say. They say, oh, once you experience it, you'll get it. And I'm like, the fuck, man? Like, shut the fuck up. Like, I always ask these people, where is justice? And they say, oh, yeah, you know, at 5D, there's fucking justice, and somewhere at the past lives or something, there's justice. And I'm like, cool fucking story, bro. You're trying to tell me I need to, like, do all this crazy shit to get to this spot, and then then I just get that there's justice. But as a side note, it's very frustrating. But you seem real. You don't seem like a crazy person or anything. I read Joe Dispenza's book about becoming supernatural. That was like one of the worst books I ever read. I put on like 2.5x and just like didn't hear one thing that I could verify as true. And I don't know, man. It didn't convince me to go to one of the seminars. But you're saying that the stuff that Joe Dispenza talks about is true. All these fucking miracles he talks about in his books are real. Apparently there was like a faith healing that happened at one of his seminars. Is that right? Like, can we talk more about this stuff?
So, I mean, okay, when you go to a seminar, you see like so many weird things, like people that go there with walking sticks and they throw the walking sticks away, and you're like, oh, is this real? Is this not real? And then
The
like
fuck?
you have people on stage going up the stage showing like a X-ray of their like cancer or maybe MRI or something. They show their like, oh, they had cancer before, but after going through this process, the entire stage 4 cancer got healed. Like, and they show like their data. I mean, you could argue that maybe it's fake and that it's manipulated and that he's just like completely faking it. But like, I mean, you know, I'm not like 100% convinced, but I would say like I'm more than 50% convinced that like it's real. Because I mean, I would not be able to be 100% convinced unless I was the one who went through it myself. But you know, when I had those other special experiences, like it made me like move towards the line. And you actually talk to these people and you're like, wow, I had this, I went for this thing and then it worked. Like, they didn't seem like they were lying. And you meet people in real life that tell you their stories, not like the guru telling you stories about their people that they could fake. It just feels more believable.
You experienced a faith healing, right? There was like something I was reading where you and everyone was feeling all the energy, and then something happened, and this person was cured. Tell me what happened there.
Yeah, so there was no person that was like cured. I don't even know if the person got cured or not. But basically, you do this like walking meditations, and somehow you meditate, and then you walk again, and like you just feel so much energy going through your body. Like the first time I saw someone like walk and then they get stuck or their body was shaking, I was like, this guy is just exaggerating it. But then like it happened to me. I'm like walking and like, oh fuck, I can't walk. My body's like stuck. I'm like, oh shit. Yeah, I mean, it sounds kind of crazy. Yeah, but that's my experience, and I'm just telling my personal experience. And then in the healing session, which every retreat there's this session, like I guess you can go in and as a skeptic and go and look and see for yourself too.
Well, I'm looking at it with open eyes. I don't know if it's real or not, man. I'm hearing about it. I want to believe. There's plenty of people that want to believe. Like me, I want to hear the story. So fucking stupid to me. I couldn't verify one thing, and it read like so much fluff. I was just like, you know, I read books where I constantly was learning something. There's books like that, and there's zero bullshit. And his was like the opposite. His was like,
I know what you mean.
I couldn't verify a fucking thing, and there's just so many things he said that were just not necessary to say. I don't agree with that statement because for a lot of reasons, but go ahead.
Okay, so in the room, you kind of like start, there's a person that's the healy, and then you walk around the room, and then at some point you go towards your healy, and you sit in a circle of 8, and you just like, you don't know what issue the person has, you kind of like use some energy in your hands, and you like kind of like try to pass imaginary energy to the person, kind of. But like when you put your hand, you just feel like there's a certain charge within your hand and it's so strong. And I remember that one moment where I felt it was so strong, I turned my hand and I put it, and everybody kind of did it at the same time, and you kind of feel like everybody was in sync, and there's like a ball of energy like floating on the person. I know it just sounds like absolutely crazy, but yeah, it's and I don't know if the person got healed or anything, but like I felt the energy going through my body. In terms of the healing as well, personally, I had I had a lot of like injuries and stuff. I was like, oh, I'll do this meditation and I'll heal myself. If it heals others, I can heal myself. But it didn't work for me too. So, you know, I believe some parts of it. I don't believe, I don't know how true it is. And it's like, I can't, even being there, I can't like verify or falsify anything.
I don't know what to say. I can't pass judgment. I've heard such stories before. I've never been to these retreats. I'm happy to go. I'm wondering, is this retreat worth it? Because is it real? It sounds like there's really crazy things happening quite a bit. And I can't tell if they're real or not, especially after reading his book. He wants like $2,000+ to go to his retreats.
I mean, I don't know. I went for the retreat twice and I still don't know if like, everything is true. But I've definitely felt something. And it's enough for me to go back and like, okay, it's not like I'm gonna like turn it into my religion, but I'm open to exploring it and see what parts I can take that may be useful in my life.
Also, you were talking about other crazy spiritual experiences, like you felt as though there's no difference between a tree and yourself. You felt something that I thought was something like Samadhi, or the idea of Samadhi. I can talk about some similar experience I've read about. So Vivekananda was talking to Ramakrishna saying, oh, like, what is this God real? Like, I don't know if any of this shit's real. And then basically Ramakrishna said, oh, you want to find out for sure? And Vivekananda was like, he had a moment where he wasn't sure. He's kind of intimidated. He's like, yeah, I do. And so Ramakrishna like touched him with his toe, like stuck out his leg and like touched Vivekananda. And then all of a sudden he felt the whole fucking universe as you described. And then he understood that everything's real. At least I've heard this story. There's a story of this dude, Upasni Maharaj, who had this fucked up life. He had another name. Kashinath was his name. And he was like in the middle of fucking nowhere. He had like multiple wives that died. He left everything. Was broke, and he decided to like meditate on the top of a rock, and he was starving, and he enters this state. He enters this state, which apparently we later learn is Samadhi, where he kind of becomes one with the universe, and he just kind of, and he like blanks out and stays there for something like 3 months straight on top of this rock in India. And he almost died, by the way, but it rained in this. He was dehydrating to death, and because of the rain, he apparently survived. But that's part of his crazy ass story. That's weird. But yeah, it sounded like you experienced a bit of Samadhi, and that was from meditating an hour a day, or what?
Okay, when I had the real super out of body experiences, it wasn't from 1 hour a day, and it wasn't like early on in my journey. It started like at Dispenza, and then when I went to India a few times for like different trainings and retreats and festivals. A lot of the times happen like during a process, which a process is not just meditation. It is involving meditation, breathwork, and moving your body in some kind of a rhythm or in some kind of a circle or some kind of a weird dance. Like for example, there's one that my body just like rotating like that in a spiral, and that was like one of the profound ones that I remember very vividly, because we were alternating between breathwork and moving the body, and suddenly I just felt like I was every single small little 0.1 degree, I was somebody else. I was my brother, I was my father. Like I started emotions, and that's like the state of grand compassion, Mahakaruna, or great compassion. I think it's Mahakaruna. In terms of the real bliss, like, you know, you're on a full-on Molly trip kind of feeling, like that's I've had that like quite a lot of times. There's this like kind of meditation process where you meditate with a guru, and the guru comes to the room and meditates with you. Like it's just like you're just accessing that state so much. And okay, so I actually experienced it at home as well, but this is like after more than 10 times of getting it at retreat centers and stuff. I was doing it at home. At 1 a.m. I would wake up and meditate for 3 hours, just because I know that the probability of you having a special experience is higher at night because of the melatonin in your brains. Like it's a precursor to DMT, and like the DMT, I feel like in the higher your melatonin level, the higher probability that night you can experience that special state. I did it many nights and it didn't always work. So I felt like anytime if I really put in the hours in the middle of the night, I had like a 20% chance of getting there, which is not a very high chance for that much. It's not fun to get up at 1 and meditate for 3 hours. Like, that's not what you want to do.
So you meditate for 3 hours straight to get in this state?
Yeah, usually you prepare like 3 hours and you're not there like sitting down, you're going in and out of sleep even. Sometimes you're falling asleep because...
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, those experiences happen like, you kind of need to be at the door or the middle point between sleep and awakeness. Yeah, a lot of you're like kind of half asleep, kind of not, you don't even know if you're asleep or not, and suddenly like, poof, it just happens all of a sudden.
Really? Okay. I have like experience where I don't really know if I'm asleep or not, but nothing particularly crazy. It's in that I've had like a couple, like, what's it called, lucid dreams, like that kind of stuff, but I've not experienced that I was my brother or anything like that. Or I've never experienced Samadhi, I don't think.
Once you experience it, you don't have a doubt whether you experience it or not.
Oh, really? Okay. Where are you now with your spiritual journey? And I know you went to a Tony Robbins. You signed up for Tony Robbins's, it's like his private group for $100K a year. I would think it's a bit spiritual in some ways.
That was before I found of the... So like I found like Joe Dispenza and Akam through Tony Robbins, like people in the circle.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. Like Tony was like going to Akam every year for many years. And in terms of where I am with my journey, I guess I haven't had a serious out-of-body experience since COVID, like 2020. Like I haven't really been chasing that transcendence anymore right now, because I feel like I'm kind of trying to reconcile, like, what do I do with that? Like okay, I'm one of the universe. If I hurt other people, like I'm hurting myself in some ways. But then like you kind of have this like little beliefs. But at the same time, you're like, oh shit, what do I actually do with that? Like, I don't want to be a crazy shaman just like getting everybody to do this. Like, what's the point of that? So I just have a very light meditation process myself.
Aren't you doing what you are doing with it already? Like, you're helping people get into buying businesses. Like, this is even your offer, right? Like, I would think that there's like hints all over what you should do with it. I mean, it's for sure not everyone's supposed to be a fucking guru. That doesn't make any sense. Like, the whole idea behind a lot of this stuff was essentially to be a more, I interpreted it as be a more efficient version of yourself, meaning like discover your best way of living. That's my personal interpretation. This is the whole reason I got into it, because I realized that it aligned very much with this idea of scaling personal development. I got into it as a much different way than you. And then I kind of realized my own life purpose of sorts. For me, it was just about being the best version of myself. And I realized, like, okay, why wouldn't I want to do things in a better and better way? Like, as you implied with business, like you think to yourself, how do you make more and more money? Why not? How do you live in a better and better way? Why stop at this dimension of money? Why not find like the ideal dimension to operate on? And I understand that that's what enlightenment is. Maybe that's some insight into what this like 12D, 10D, and all this shit is, 5D. I was wondering that recently myself.
I feel like it's kind of a bit of a pendulum where you can like go one side and you go to the one extreme, and then when you go to the extreme, you kind of need to swing back to real life a little bit, and then you go there to figure out more of like what you didn't know before, find greater alignment or greater efficiencies. Like you kind of get exposed to this like other dimension in some ways, and you don't know how to use it. Yet like I feel like it's kind of hard to just go back to reality and just ignore the fact that you have seen all of those things and experience all of those things in the other dimension. So there's always like this like nagging thought at the back of my mind. I did find certain beliefs about business that I have experienced through that. Like I even more so believe in business, because fundamentally I feel like business and commerce needs to exist. Somebody needs to create a product or service and they need to sell it to someone else, because that's how value is being created. That's how money exchanges hands. And you need that first before you can create all the other things in the world.
That makes lots of sense to me. Business is an everyday part of life. I mean, money is sort of like a marker for energy transfer in a way, or value transfer rather, and this has to exist in some kind of form, unless people are really, really acute to perceiving it. Actually, in fact, Ravi Shankar says that God is described as like the perfect businessman, and this would be helpful in understanding this verse that Christ says, actually, of whoever has been given more, and who doesn't have is whatever they have is taken away. I mean, whoever has like the energy to do something gets more of something, like in business, and puts more money into business, or put more energy, whatever form it takes into business, is given more of it. And then whoever doesn't have is taken away. Like, it makes sense this way, actually. The universe makes a lot of sense this way, if you really look at it. That's my personal understanding. He says lots of things that I think are quite useful forms of wisdom. I want to wrap things up with Tony Robbins' stuff. I've heard that his stuff's actually really good. He has the philosophy of give, even for his larger amounts of money that he charges, that he wants to give more than what people expect. He wants to exceed expectations. Do you think that he actually did exceed expectations, especially for 100K for his stuff? Do you think he's worth it?
Well, I think if you have money and you want the fastest way, it's a pretty efficient path to exposure to a lot of things and a lot of concepts. I mean, it's really like a full-on, like that year I went Asia, the US 10 times, just because I was attending so many of his events. So it's like you really have to invest a lot of time and money. I think a lot of the things he teaches are good. You just have to overlook the fact that there's a lot of it's like kind of manipulating the environment and your psyche, and getting people to jump up and down, and then like dancing and like hyping you up like crazy, and then selling you into the next thing while you're like hyped up and crazy and like in a peak state. So there are things that I like, things that I don't. Overall, I don't regret doing it. I think like in really like for a certain kind of person, it's probably worth it. There's a lot of people that will just go there and hate it as well. If you're not open-minded, you go there and like you just feel like he's trying to manipulate you into buying more of his stuff. You go there with gut. Some people just don't let their gut down. So if you're that kind of person, like I'm sort of like, okay, I'll just go like Dr. Joe. Even if it's like I don't 100% believe whatever he says, I'm okay. I can find the things that I resonate with and just try it out anyway. Yeah. So it works for me. I don't know if it's for everyone.
I understood even for the networking and connections and whatever he helps with the business, it would be good. But what do I know? I would have thought such a sales tactic is actually not really optimal in the long run, because I understood that actually the long-term soft sale was better than what you're describing as quite a hard sale where you manipulate someone. There's also a perfect analogy with dealing with women. I would say that a lot of guys use these strategies to like optimize for getting laid as much as possible by trying to get her to like sleep with you in like after drinking or whatever it is, or in an extreme state, and that actually it creates like the buyer's remorse and loses the girl that you want in the long run a lot of the time. And the same for sales. It's kind of the same thing where you like get the sale short term, but you might lose people in the long run. Is that not true? I would have thought that that would be the criticism for what he would do in other sorts of businessmen's hard sell type tactics.
Yeah, I mean, I don't personally like that part of it very much. I do see why they think they come from the perspective where it's like when somebody buys my product, I'm gonna deliver so much value, so I'm gonna do whatever it takes to sell them in the first place, and then deliver even more value than what they expect. That's kind of like, so they don't mind being really pushy because it gets people to cross the line, and they think that they can make up for it after the sale.
That doesn't seem right to me.
You're so convinced that you are such a good guy that you can force the girl to sleep with you and then like impress her the next day or something like that, because now she's committed after she slept with you. It's not what I believe, but that's what I think that they believe.
Well, that wouldn't be perfect, for sure. It would be better than a lot of other things that happen, like the hard sale and then be shit. Like, that would be much worse. I understand why he's very successful, because that mentality would sell a lot of people rather than like the 100% ethical sale of not being, not the hard sell, but all the fucking way and over deliver all the fucking way. Like, that would be probably optimal, but I guess what they're doing is pretty good compared to the alternatives, or being a shitty salesperson. That also sucks. To continue on with the analogy.
Yeah, they justify themselves in some ways, like saying like, oh, if they don't buy from me, they buy from someone else, that's worse. So like, I might as well push them.
It sounds not perfectly ethical in my opinion, but
yeah, same.
It sounds like they're compared to other people who do all sorts of shady shit a lot better. That's my personal guess.
That's very accurate of how I feel about it.
All right, well, I'm glad we can agree on that. Any last words before we wrap things up? Sounds like you have a very interesting life, and you're kind of killing it with business and a bright future.
Like, I mean, if anybody has a 7-figure business, I'm building a small community. It's like $7 a month, that just like one feature connect people with each other. Like, it's a new project of mine, virtually. It's just like, yeah, that's probably the thing I'm most passionate about. And then I do a bit of consulting as well. It could be like, some people have approached me to ask me to teach them how to buy businesses. But I've also kind of been doing a bit of growth. I don't know if there's business people, but yeah, feel free to hit me up. Like, if you're successful and resonate with my story and want to talk more. Just like, I'm on X mostly these days. I just started growing my account 7 months ago.
Check out Wayne Yap's Twitter, guys. What's your Twitter?
Just Wayne Yap.
Wayne Yap, okay. And to learn a bit more about business for free, check out his community as well. I'm actually personally curious. I advocate that people should join a community for poker. It's much better to learn with friends and with people that are on your side, and to get better alongside them, because no one can learn everything all on their own. Not even a fucking genius can do that. And that's one of the reasons why I started the Jungleverse, to support the up-and-coming players. And we'll be providing a link below, of course, to join the Jungleverse, and a link to Wayne's Twitter. And likewise, I was thinking to myself, I should join a community as a founder in order to learn from other founders and entrepreneurs as well. So I'm personally curious in that. And buying businesses sounds like a good plan once you're like established businesses, in a way of like running them in a way that is efficient.
One thing that would be super fun to do is like have a few rich, successful poker players come together, like do a roll up, buy some businesses, merge them. Like, there's some people that have already business experience that can join the deals. Some people that just like bring the money. I always feel like there's so much brains in poker, but they're like super smart, but they're just like stuck playing the game. And it's such a waste of resources. If you like kind of go into business, you can like create so much more value for the world. So that would be like a...
Guess what? I happen to totally agree with you. And I also am trying to solve that problem. So, or use those sorts of logic to do other things with it, like invest in changing the culture for people who are passionate about that. That's a different idea, but business is a bit more rational, or a bit more tangible is the word. You can see real world measurable results with it. So I think poker players will be more in line with that idea, because like money is very tangible. Creating impact is often tangible. So yeah, I happen to share that vision.
Yeah, cool. Sounds good. Maybe we can see how to collaborate more in some ways in future, or soon even.
Yeah, it's possible. Okay, Wayne, thank you for your time, and best of luck. We'll put links to your resources on the YouTube page. And yes, guys, if you want to get into business, check out Wayne Yap's Twitter, and especially if you're interested in poker. Once again, thank you for your time, Wayne.
Yeah, thanks, Jungle. See ya.